I'm very excited to be here today with Justin Rowe, the CEO of Impactable. And before we dive into our conversation, Justin, could you just share your journey with Impactable and how you've kind of been able to make a strategic pivot into your focus being LinkedIn advertising?
Yeah, it's a good question. So from all things, I actually came from the restaurant industry. I discovered LinkedIn maybe 6 years ago, and I took an aggressive approach to grow my network and find opportunities for myself. I stumbled accidentally into kind of creating a lead generation kind of strategy with LinkedIn and realized the power of LinkedIn. I scaled a LinkedIn lead generation agency from there and kind of from that idea. It was actually acquired 2.5 years ago. So that lead generation agency was acquired by a data heavy investor. I stayed on to continue to run and pivot things. And from that point, we made a decision to pivot away from a strictly lead generation focus and into more of an advertising focus. And we rolled into a LinkedIn ads agency, which is what we're known for now. We've kind of completely revamped everything since then, and that's what everyone knows us for. 90% of our revenue is LinkedIn ads management now. And it's kind of been, I would say that's also when I fell in love with marketing in general. I did a lot of our own marketing from, zero to now where we're at. And so I kind of understand the different aspects. It's very much showed itself in our products and offering development and what we can do for clients. But that's kind of how I got to this point. And yeah, going through that acquisition was also kind of a highlight of the story as well.
Great. As a marketing leader, I think, we're constantly having to reevaluate where we're investing and what the latest tactics are in terms of delivering results. And you mentioned really that pivot from lead generation to being broader and focusing more on advertising. So tell me about what was changing in the market or what you were seeing from your clients that led to that decision to really focus more broadly on advertising throughout the buying journey beyond lead gen capture.
We started with like lead generation because it seemed to be, something everyone wanted, and lead generation has high search volume. People are wanting to generate more leads. And so offering a service that tailored to that seemed to make sense. What we found though, is that the clients who were consuming, and attracted to lead generation, they had a short-term focus. So it made it really hard to maintain those clients long-term because they had a short-term focus. They wanted results fast. A lot of them were smaller companies looking to, grow their pipeline really fast, and they didn't have a mature long-term view. So we ended up having kind of a productized offer. A lot of smaller clients were buying our service. The churn was really high. And for, a couple of years, the majority of our revenue was like new sales revenue and not necessarily this baseline of renewals that was growing. It was so we were scaling, but we weren't, scaling in a super healthy way. I kind of came to the realization for ourselves, and as we started maturing our process for clients, that in order to help them really get leads that turned into revenue and clients that kept with us long term, we had to approach it a little more different than just transactional. We had to go look at the quality of the leads, not just the quantity of the leads. We had to look at the channels and mix of where we're getting those, how we nurture, how we can build trust and kind of position ourselves as experts versus just going after the cheapest leads we can. So LinkedIn ads really made sense as a platform to build trust and credibility, diversifying our portfolio with paid search and paid listings. I actually do lean on Clutch myself quite a bit, and paid search, and then LinkedIn, quality traffic, retargeting on Facebook, and programmatic, the full funnel approach, and shifting the gears of just getting net new leads that are cold, that your sales team hates following up with, and moving that into, by the time they turn into leads, they know who you are, they've been to your website, they're familiar with you, there's some trust built up. Those conversations actually are 10 times better. Your sales teams love those leads. And so that was a fundamental shift in mindset for us. And we rolled that and adapted our offerings around that for clients as well. And in doing so, we've attracted a lot more mature clients who are making a shift and focus as well into more demand gen. into more of thought leadership and trust and credibility. And we've seen dramatic improvement in overall pipeline health and quality of leads from that shift.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hear so many marketing thought leaders out there today saying this concept of an MQL and just lead for sake is dead, right? And you have to really think about that. So I think that's a good segue into the real meat of the conversation is from our conversations with hundreds of agency owners at Clutch. We see what you talked about, setting this competitive pricing strategy and how you package your offering being so crucial because it really directly impacts your profitability, your client acquisition strategy, and then that retention over time. And so how have you thought about your pricing strategy and aligning that with the perceived value of your services for different clients, and what methods are you using to understand the needs of different businesses at different maturity levels?
Pricing strategy is always a really interesting one to get into because there's this massive range of thought of, everywhere from a productized service that's like bite-sized and packaged to highly customizable and premium services. How much strategic oversight do you put in there? So we've run the gamut. We've kind of had very productized pricing and packaging in the past. As we kind of made that shift I alluded to with the demand gen shift, we started attracting much more mature organizations, and our pricing has adapted for that. And so kind of the way we think about it is, as a scrappy startup myself, I feel like I don't ever want to lose some of these entry-level pricing options that are very attractive to an underserved market, which is like these smaller organizations or the SMB. I feel like mostly in B2B, there's like these productized low offers, and then there's these highly customized, highly premium priced. And for me, like, even, as we grow and scale, I know, like, and I work with all these funded startups, I know they don't just like, there's not like a threshold where they just say, okay, money, we don't care about money and we'll pay whatever. Like, I still see the market as very price sensitive, even among funded startups, even among, mature companies. They still are scrutinizing how much they're paying and what they're getting. And so what we found is I like to have entry points that are less friction for companies to come in. And I try to price it based on the opportunity that the company represents and not necessarily that particular purchase or entry point for them. For example, like we have ads management starting at like $8.99 a month. And I would think, you might think that would be, for small companies getting started with ads that don't have a lot of options. But we have lots of funded startups who start there. They're getting their feet wet with LinkedIn ads, and then they grow and mature. And so we've priced things in a way that says, okay, we're okay having entry-level offers with thin margins if we are kind of strict or can, care about who's buying into that and the opportunity. And then we build that relationship and grow, either the LinkedIn ads channel or our other offerings into long-term relationships. And then that equation of the LTV really helps stretch. And one thing we've kind of figured out is that, there's two sides. There's people that need us for almost like a fractional staffing or expertise, where they have these big motions across 9 geos, and it's either they hire a big agency or they grow an internal team, and leveraging us for that is very attractive. But they kind of have a decent idea about assets they want to use, strategy they want to employ, and they mostly want to use us for that fractional team support. And then there's another group that really needs a lot of help with brand positioning and strategy and which offer to go for, and that would be a much more higher priced with strategic oversight and who's going to be in that pod. So we've kind of divided it into those little groups. But yeah, that's kind of a complex question, and we've kind of attacked it in a couple of different ways where we have options and ranges. And I like having packages that people can look at as a starting point, but almost all of our clients end up in some customized version of that versus just the productized kind of packages that are shown on the website.
Sure. And I love that example of even larger clients that you're working with. They still have that proof of concept entry point where I want to see what I can get from this, and that, regardless of the actual needs of the business, there's a way you can package that to kind of bring them in, show your value, and land and expand that account over time. Um, and so, you mentioned being kind of a scrappy startup leader yourself. And one thing we hear a lot is that as your business begins to grow, as you're landing and expanding more of those clients, as you talked about, there becomes this balance of your time and how much time are you spending on those bigger tier clients versus continuing to fuel kind of new entry, new business at those smaller packages. And so how do you think about that balance?
We go in waves, and I come from the restaurant industry, and one mentality that I feel like I've brought even into this B2B marketing world is the idea of kind of sliding to where is needed. And there's this constant balance. Like you can, for us, for a decent amount of time, incoming leads and signing new clients was, not an issue. It was kind of actually overloading our ops. And so we'd have all of these ideas of how we could get new business in the door, but we realized that actually we were doing a really good job on that side, and that we weren't making the most of the opportunities we had with our current clients. There's operational improvements, there's quality, there's training. So we made a pivot probably 3 months ago to say, okay, let's put a pause on rolling out initiatives for new sales, and let's really put a focus on taking better care of the clients we have, maturing our process. And through that, we actually started developing better processes and systems and support for more of our mature clients. And we realized we actually have a better product market fit for more of our bigger clients and the ones that want to use us for like fractional staff than our smaller clients who need all of this from us. And so we also learned from that. We're getting back to the point where we feel like the operations are getting a lot more mature, that our clients are telling us that they've noticed a difference and they're happy with the service. And, we're kind of ready to move back and see what we can do to get, to ramp up new business coming in. But I imagine it'll constantly be kind of a balancing act of really keeping a finger on the pulse of where both sides are. And one thing that, I've been really cognizant of is the operational stress, because it's great to roll out new budget and bring all these new logos, but if you're breaking your operations team, or if the client experience is suffering, like that's going to quickly become your top priority, and you'll have to slide back to that side.
And to that point, I think that's such a great insight, because that's a unique challenge in the B2B space of a service business as compared to a lot of the content out there around pricing strategy and new business versus retention is very much focused on B2B tech and SaaS and that model. And this is not that, right? You have a human component of what you can actually deliver to those clients. And so with that in mind, how do you think about that pricing strategy to stay competitive when thinking about your profitability and kind of your margin? And have you had to make any pivots to that along the way?
Yeah, we've done a couple of things on that front. So one of the things we did was we did the kind of a pricing analysis. We looked at competitors, but one thing we realized, and I think this is probably true for most industries, is so our entry level offers, we realized they have high pricing sensitivity. They appeal to either healthy startups just getting started, or wanting to try, or smaller startups, and they don't have a lot of budget, but they have high expectations. If it's $8.99, or if it's $5.99, or if it goes to $12.49, like there's going to be a dramatic difference in the level of interest and the level of signups with that service. Whereas we realized, talking to clients, doing some experiments, our top tier, there's a lot less price sensitivity, or we could change the price, and we have, by $1,000 or $1,500, and there's almost no additional resistance from clients at that tier. So at the price where you're charging $500 or $1,000 a month, there's a lot of price sensitivity. When you get into some of the higher tiered clients and more that goes into it, the difference between if they're paying $7,500 or $9,500, sometimes that isn't a big difference in their mind. So what we've tried to do is try to anchor the entry level offers as much as possible. In fact, we've even considered walking down our entry level offer, packaging a little better, making it more affordable, while still ramping up the difference in the more premium offers, because we realize that the more mature clients, especially using us for fractional staffing, and they have 9 different geos and all these assets, it's a lot more complex. We're getting into much more complex project management than we ever were before. And we're applying more resources, we're recalculating how much that costs. And so some of those actually will stretch, but those clients are happy to pay that, if it makes sense for their needs. And so, yeah, I think about it in that terms, like you can't just roll out a universal increase or decrease across all your channels. You have to look at what segments are attracted to what offers and what their price sensitivity is. And I think that's been great for us to look at. And we've been growing our margins that way by keeping the margins thin at the lower level and then widening the margins as they scale with us, or as they buy in at the upper level. And that's worked really well.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like those kind of package tiers is really where you've landed in terms of being able to kind of place people into that, and then that evolves. But as you look across the competitive landscape, there's some agencies paying an hourly rate. There's, that custom project scoping, as you talked about, there's a percent of ad spend, lots of different models out there. And so how did you kind of look across those different offerings and decide on, based on what I'm seeing across the competitive set, this is how I'm going to price it and how I'm going to remain competitive?
Yeah, I guess coming from a non-marketing and non-B2B background, I approach marketing and I approach a lot of this like a newborn baby. Sometimes like I don't have a lot of the, this is how we've always done it. I was learning what it looked like, and I stole a lot of ideas from the B2C world. Like I believe and I feel like the B2C and e-com marketers are some of the savviest, best marketers I know. And then when I got into B2B world, there was like a lack of focus on retargeting, which, I mean, if you have a $50 or $100 or $200 pair of shoes and you visit that site, you're going to see those shoes and other similar shoes and other related products for the next 3 months. But if you go to a B2B service or software that costs you $10,000 and they don't bother like retargeting you over the next 3 to 6 months, like I felt like there were some big gaps. So the way I kind of approached that was really looking at what we could steal from the B2C world, how we could mature our marketing on this side, and then really trying to see how we could implement that to give the best value for our clients.
I love, even your experience coming from a restaurant background, right? Like this idea of kind of like a menu of options, right? Like,
oh man,
making it really easy to kind of package what are you getting, because I think that so many marketing buyers are just humans at the end of the day, right? And to your point on the broader e-commerce landscape, you want to make that frictionless buying experience, and B2B has made it very complex for a lot of these purchases to figure out what you're going to get for that price point. So I think that
And on that, and that's where I was going. I was frustrated, as a founder looking at products and services. I would go to their website, I would go to their pricing page, and then it was either no pricing listed, or it's like really fuzzy, or it's like overly complex. So one of the ideas that I had early on, and back when we were lead gen and productized, we surprisingly had a shockingly number of people. Like you could sign up for our B2B service on the website originally. You could look at our different packages, you could click in, there was a sales page. It had like different discounts for like monthly commitments. You could actually then put a card on file, and it would you could pay, it would trigger an intake form. Like it was highly productized, but it was like a B2B service. So we've obviously come a long way from that. But I've kept elements of that where, I want things to be easier. More buyers don't necessarily want to have to jump through all these hoops to know what your pricing is, to be able to sign up. And so obviously as you grow and mature, you can't make it like a McDonald's menu on your website, but there should be elements where it's easier to digest, understand, and work with someone than some of these companies make it.
Sure. So last question, how is Impactable disrupting your industry? And as you're looking forward to the end of this year and as we get into 2025, is there anything you're really excited about as you look ahead?
There's a couple of ways that I think we're really disrupting things. And the first is we're rolling out our own LinkedIn tool set and technology. So we are getting into the software space. We have a LinkedIn, we've actually partnered with LinkedIn product and API team. We have a LinkedIn ad scheduling tool. We have a LinkedIn audience tuning tool. Our main investor came from a series of data companies that he's grew and sold. So our own website visitor identification tool. So getting into that space, but I think the biggest thing we're doing that I don't see happening enough is the idea of thinking of marketing as this ecosystem. I see so many times okay, we have our paid search, we have some paid listing, we have Google, or we have LinkedIn, we have email, but it's all these siloed channels that are expected to run separately. They're not leveraging each other. And the one idea that I think, the e-com again does really well, that B2B doesn't necessarily do well, is these channels should be fluid. They should be ebbing and flowing from each other. And that's one thing that I think we are doing really well. The pilot, call that I started with was LinkedIn ads sucks by itself, but LinkedIn ads retargeting complements almost any B2B ecosystem. And that messaging of LinkedIn ads being, sure, it's expensive in a silo, but as part of a bigger ecosystem, that's, I think, been one of the messages that's helped push LinkedIn ads forward for ourselves. And then it's not just, a sales pitch. I firmly believe that I can confidently bid or ramp up my Clutch listings and my paid search traffic if I can qualify and convert that on the back end with LinkedIn ads. So showing more B2B companies how the ecosystem can actually improve their overall marketing efficiency, how LinkedIn can actually improve their current results and lessen the the risk. That's a big message I'm pushing, will continue to push, that I feel like is not out there. And I feel like that is in its own way disrupting things of how traditionally other marketing agencies market themselves. They have a series of services that are somewhat disconnected, but it's like, take what you want or sign up for what you need. But this is a little more advanced than that, I think.
Yeah, actually having that point of view, right? We are in a attraction fragmented environment media-wise, and people are spending time across lots of different places. LinkedIn being one I know from a professional context is where I spend a lot of time, but it's not the only one, right? There's podcasts and there's search and there's other places I'm looking and being influenced. And so that surround sound strategy, I think is fantastic, and really where I see the B2B industry going as well. So really excited to see how you're taking a part in that. And thank you for your time today.
Of course. Thank you.